But since we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and since we're talking about these potential ties that Donald Trump has with his rich and connected and powerful friends, I'm sorry, he said so, not me. He said a really good friend of mine who wants to remain anonymous gave me $130 million and broke some more rules to do so.
And a friend of mine, talking about donors, a friend of mine, a man that's great. I'm not going to use his name unless he lets me do it. Susie can tell you about this, but he called us the other day and he said, I'd like to contribute any shortfall you have because of the Democrat shutdown. And today he sent us a check for $130 million.
His name is Timothy Mellon. He's a billionaire, a backer of Donald Trump, and he's the heir to the Mellon fortune. It's like this huge bank. And here he is. He's kind of like a low profile billionaire. He doesn't do a lot of press, so you might not have heard of him before. His father, Paul Mellon, is listed in the Epstein flight logs. He's logged twice, so it appears he flew on the plane multiple times. The Bank of New York Mellon, where he's obviously connected, was recently sued by a woman who was abused by Epstein, alleging that the banks knowingly provided financial services that enabled him to conduct his operation for years.
Since we're talking about dead folks associated with Jeffrey Epstein, here's a story from Michael Wolff, that guy who's written multiple books and had multiple interviews with Jeffrey Epstein and has been exposing Donald Trump's connections and buddy-buddy relationships to Jeffrey Epstein for years now. Let's check in with Michael Wolff. He has a story about how this, you remember that there was discussions about the fallout between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, and people said it was about real estate. It was about he stole his employee, which I think was Virginia Giuffre. All those stories never really fully matched up, and we never knew. There was something about real estate.
In 2004, Epstein believed himself to be the high bidder on a piece of real estate in Palm Beach, a house. $36 million was his bid. He took his friend Trump around to see the house to advise him on how to move the swimming pool. Trump thereupon went around Epstein's back and bid $40 million for the house and got the property. Epstein, who was well acquainted, in fact, deeply involved with Trump's scattered finances, understood that he didn't have $40 million to pay for this house. Now, if that was the case, it was someone else's $40 million. At the time, Epstein believed this to be the $40 million of a Russian oligarch by the name of Rybolev. Less than 2 years later, this same house that Trump had bought for $40 million was sold for $95 million. And it was, in fact, sold to Mr. Rybolev. This is all a red flag of money laundering.
That's part one. There's a lot more that Michael Wolff has to say, but really fast. So there was a bit of a real estate dispute, and Donald Trump went behind Jeffrey's back, bought the property that he wanted, that he was very jazzed about, but didn't have $40 million. Went through some Russian guy, and then it seems to be to make $55 million. Just want to have a quick recap of how this whole falling out, again, according to Michael Wolff, who wrote many books and talked to Jeffrey Epstein intimately about his life, was sharing. Here's part two of that fallout.
What Epstein did, and he was furious about losing this house. I mean, there's something about these guys that nothing rouses them so much as a real estate betrayal. Epstein, after the sale of this house, after Trump went around his back, got this house, Epstein began to threaten him. He began to threaten him with lawsuits. He began to threaten him with going to the press and saying that Trump was a front man for a money laundering deal. Trump panics at this point, and Epstein believed, and he believed to his dying day, that it was Trump who went to the police, Trump who was fully acquainted with what was going on at Epstein's house, fully acquainted for many years. Trump went to the police and, as Epstein said, dropped the dime on him. That is to say, informed the police of what was going on, and an investigation began, and all of Epstein's legal problems for the next 15 years began to unfold.
I mean, Michael Wolff is very thorough in his explanations, even explaining what dropping the dime on someone means, meaning he exposed him, turned him into authorities, knowing what it was that he was up to. So a couple of criminals turned on each other. One threatened to turn the other one in, because that's what criminals do once the heat starts coming on, or maybe they're mad about something unrelated, like a real estate deal, which of course is based in some level of illegality, because that's who Donald Trump is. So there's that second aspect of this falling out. Here's the last part.
This story about this piece of real estate and their falling out was first published in June 2019. It's published actually in my book, Siege, the second book I had written about the Trump White House. Epstein had recounted this story to me. I put it in this book. Epstein at that moment was in Paris. He read the book. He called me with some alarm, and he said he was afraid that he might have said too much. 3 weeks later, he returned to the United States from Paris and was promptly arrested on the tarmac of Teterboro Airport in New Jersey when his plane landed.
And then all the rest fell apart for Jeffrey Epstein and his child sex trafficking ring. Again, this is according to Michael Wolff, who I believe has a lot of legitimacy and credibility on these topics, considering he's talked directly to Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen Jeffrey Epstein say some of the things that Michael Wolff was saying that he said about his friendship and relationship with Donald Trump, all that.
In the White House, they believe that the story in the Wall Street Journal about the birthday greeting that Donald Trump, the salacious birthday greeting that Donald Trump sent Jeffrey Epstein in 2003 on the occasion of his 50th birthday, was a leak from the Maxwell family. And in the White House, they regarded this as, quote, a shot across the bow. So a threat, if that Ghislaine had damaging material on Donald Trump. So Donald Trump's lawyer went down, and I expect to try to figure out exactly what Ghislaine Maxwell has.
Your deputy attorney general sat down with her recently.
Well, let me tell you, he's a very talented man. His name is Todd Blanche. He's a very legitimate person, very high. I just a very highly thought of person, respected by everybody. So I know this. I didn't discuss it with him, but anything he talked about with her, or the fact that he did that, not unusual, number one, and most importantly is something that would be totally above board.
So you don't have to believe him, but I'm just playing what is that he's saying. I just want to point out how disgusting. Again, every time we talk about anything when it comes to this, started with this whole deal with getting $130 million from Donald Trump's good friend, who's the heir to this billion dollar family of this bank, who's caught up with some issues with the Jeffrey Epstein survivor. Just want to point that out.